Hi, welcome! This is a Machinist guide to the 181 to 190 set. A few things before we get into it. For this set of floors you want to keybind your toggle walk/run button. There are a lot of dangerous if not impossible enemies that aggro by sound here. Just open keybinds from the main menu, go to the movement tab and they should be right there under jump. The second thing is that these floors are, in my opinion, the hardest to get through. Time becomes a very big concern and you will have to use a good chunk of your Pomanders here. Don't hesitate to use them. And lastly, even easy enemies on this set and the next can pack a punch. Try your best not to face tank anything for too long. With that out of the way, use a raising Pomander and let's get into it. On the first few floors you'll have the grenades, which are sight. They are your go-to picks here. They just melee and do this point blank AoE. Wamouras are sight and they are your patrol for the early floors. They have a cone attack and that's about it, but if you pull them alongside another enemy they will spam heal and you will probably die. Wamouracampas pull by sound, so you want to toggle walk to avoid them. They have a pretty hard hitting range attack called Cannonball. This can crit. Pull them with sprint and then slow them and be very careful pulling them if you don't have a lot of room to kite. I would not fight one of these on a gloom, no items, no sprint, damage down, pretty much any debuff that isn't a non-knockback. Sprites pull by sight. To see where they are facing you will have to target them and look at the hitbox graphic. I would not fight one of these without a steal on. They are casters, so you can mitigate the damage by kiting, and I would absolutely not pull them on any sort of floor debuff even with a steal going. Worms are sound. They cast Sun Pillar once you get in range of them, regardless of being in combat with them or not. Be careful when kiting mobs past them because of this. They also continue with this attack after you have pulled them. Other than that, they have a 30-second in range mechanic called Bottomless Desert. This can also crit. The cast is too fast to be interrupted, but if you keep track of the time and put distance between you and the worm as the 30-second is coming up, you can dodge it. I do this by looking at my drill cooldown, but you can also look at the instance timer. I personally don't fight these unless I really have to, and as always I avoid them at all costs on debuffed floors. Garm are a proximity patrol starting at floor 183. They are scary until you learn their mechanics. They do a series of telegraphed cones, but their main mechanics are the dragon's or ram's voice. Both of these are one-shots and they are interruptible, but I would recommend saving your interrupt as an emergency. Dragon's voice is a very big donut AoE. It is safer to dodge in towards the Garm than to try dodge out the way. Ram's voice is a point blank AoE. They seemingly have a random attack pattern every time, so the best way is to hover somewhere at max melee and don't go too far when kiting. Try not to face tank them too much either. They can cast 2 rams or dragon's voices in a row, or they can alternate, so always pay attention to their cast bar. The Archeosaurs is sight and they have a double auto attack called Underbite, alongside the point blank AoE called Primordial Bark. Pull them with sprint and then slow them. Be careful on debuffed floors. The Vindthurs is sight and it is a new patrol that also appears after 184. They are very easy, just casting a series of telegraphed attacks. The Claw is sight, and if it wasn't for the sake of getting footage for this guide, I would not fight these unless I really had to. They are killable with a strength and a steel. While they don't have an enrage, you want to kill these very fast. They do this pull-in attack followed by impale, an attack that can crit. They also have tail screw, which is ranged and applies a very nasty slow on you. You can see how the longer you fight these for, the worse they get. You also have to do your best to kite them because they will quickly kill you if you are face tanking. Be mindful that you cannot arm's length the pull-in. Crawlers are sound and they are an impossible enemy. You have to use a witching to kill them. They have an instant non-telegraphed unavoidable cone that they cast alongside their auto attacks. This cone applies a very strong slow and they also have a pretty strong poison dodge. Treat them like the Anzu from the previous floors. If one pulls, instantly use a witching. The Flood Dragons are sight and they are the other impossible enemy on this set. When pulled, they have an instant AoE that applies a very strong dot. If you pull one, you have to use a witching straight away, or if you are low on witchings, you could use a raising and die in a safe spot. Since time can be a real issue on this set of floors, you have to start using some Pomanders to combat that. Please note that there is no real wrong way to go about this and everyone will have their own way of rationalizing and planning their Pom usage. This is just some of my rule of thumbs and what worked for me this particular run. Last run, for example, I had used a different arrangement of Poms. With that out of the way, I pretty much set any no item debuff that I get. I don't feel comfortable pulling anything in this set without my pots. But for more floor specific tips, on 186 I will always use something in advance for 187. Usually a flight and an affluence, sometimes I will use an alteration alongside them as well. If I feel like I'm decent on time, I will save the flight. More or less the same for 187, but I always flight here. And then I consider the other two. If I'm even shorter on time, I will start considering rages as well. On 188 I usually use all three. Here I did no flight and it turned out okay, but I think that was a mistake on my part. In the end I still had the rage if I got an unluckily big floor. The best advice I can give you here is to watch a handful of clears of this set and see what everyone else does as well. Like I said, I've seen many variations of pom usage and reasoning and none of them are wrong. Strength, Steel and Lust are mandatory. If you have 3 lusts here, even better, but I usually have 2, and I use both. This boss is a real sponge and can take a while. This is the same as the floor 90 boss mechanically, but the colors are reversed. You have to kill the blue bombs and you have to use the red bombs to stun him. There is a handy diagram here, also down in the description. If you learn it, you can pre-position the boss in the stun bomb so you can get more uptime. But I will admit that I personally struggle with memorizing this boss for some reason. You can take this as reassurance that you can do it even just by being reactive. To combat the lack of diagram knowledge, I just tried to kite him in smaller circles instead of the edge of the arena so I can react and have enough time to run around and knock the bomb in. Again, this is not optimal. If you can manage to learn the diagram, I strongly recommend you do. Whatever you do, do not open with Lust. The boss will run up to you and melee you once, followed by his tongue buster, Scalding Scolding. If you were lasting, this would interrupt your cast. Shortly after, the first blue bomb spawns. You have to kill this one before he finishes casting. The boss will start casting sap, followed by a couple of melees and another 2 saps. I usually last on the second sap in this rotation, but be careful because as soon as the sap rotation finishes, he will do another tongue buster. There will be another sap cast followed by the first red bomb spawn. Knock the bomb into him or pre-position him on the spawn. Regardless of the method you use, do not use your turret or ricochet when this bomb is up. You don't want any accidental cleave that could knock it away. I just save everything and use it after the bomb is gone. Note that the bomb doesn't have to be right on him, his hitbox has to be in the bomb's AoE. After this little sequence, he will do some melees, another tongue buster and a new blue bomb will spawn. And then the sub rotation repeats. Another tongue buster into another red bomb spawn. Rinse and repeat from here on out. If you want to use your extra lusts, just time them during the 3 sub rotation like the first one. Make sure that you refresh your strength and steel if you need to, and be diligent with your pot usage. Thank you so much for watching, I hope this helps you out. Let me know how your climb is going, and if you enjoyed this little guide, consider giving it a like. That's actually the first time I've ever said that unironically, and I'm trying my best.